I'm saying this notion of the polls that are coming in, I saw Ipsos also put on that poll, they're not scientific. And don't equate local government election and national government election. Look, if I'm deployed by my political party and they give me a party line, I ought to follow the party line because
even if you know it's illegal.
That can be handled internally in the party, yes.
Welcome to the State of the Nation. I'm your host, Mike Sham. We are doing our countdown to the 2024 elections. And joining me today is a former student activist and leader of the ANC Youth League in Mpumalanga, was part of SASCO, and a general activist, quite a regular person on some of the talk shows on TV, and somebody I appeared with when I was on JJ Tabani's show, Power to Truth, and that is Gerry Navari. And I call him Navari because he's like Elvis. He goes by one name, and that's Navari.
Good morning, Mike, and the viewership.
It's there. Lovely to have you on there. We see you there decked out in your keffiyeh.
Yes,
right?
It's cold. Johannesburg is quite cold. Winter has started. So I thought I should protect my neck. I don't want to catch flu.
You're not making a political statement. You're just trying to keep warm. Is that right?
Well, when I wake up this morning, as I used to do, listen to news, go through publications, I realized that there's still a continuation of genocide in Gaza. Children and women particularly are still suffering from hunger. There's still a blockage of Gaza. So I thought I should make a statement that we still stand sympathy with the children and women of Palestine. And we call upon the world to continue to be more focused on resolving the problem in the Middle East. I'm happy that I hear that the US has taken a stand, that they won't allow a ground force to enter Gaza, because that would be catastrophic of million people who stay in that space, the children particularly who have died in this conflict. And the world must really work for peace in the Middle East.
So do you think it was the right action to have taken Israel to the International Court of Justice on a case of genocide? Do you think it was the right thing for your government to have done?
I think Netanyahu has become a law unto himself. He doesn't even listen to his allies who had advised differently. So the only place where justice could prevail in the international space is the ICC.
Okay, so let's just overlay that with what many people would be asking, will be the fact that about the same number of people have been killed in Gaza as what die in South Africa due to murders. But I don't see you taking Becky Taylor to the International Court of Justice.
There's quite a different aspect to this, and the context is important. In our case, we're dealing with a decay of morals in society, basically as part of our general problem. But to me, it speaks about the death of community activism. I've lamented this over a period of time. I think that post-1994, we had a society that depended largely on the state for everything, including their own safety. We grew up having our own street committee. We grew up having social clubs. We grew up having sports activities in our locality. But what I see now is that there's disintegration of society generally. So it's every man for himself. And in that space, crime will thrive.
Does that mean that we give the government a pass? Government's okay because community activists aren't active.
No, government is us. It's a community. So if community can't take their future into their own hands, it becomes very problematic. Police can't go and arrest criminals who we know. We know each other in community X or Y. I know who are the criminals here, but we don't report them. We sometimes even shield them. So we make the work of police very difficult. I want a collaboration between the state and communities. But in my view, where I come from, I realize that there's just a death of community activism broadly. Leadership in that space is absent.
And what does
thrive?
I get it. I understand the community model is under threat. Yeah. But should we apportion no blame then to the police?
Look, and this is, I'm going to say it, and I sound like a broken record. There has been a period of, check from 1994 towards 2004. There's been a high level of stability in government, including building of institutions, which were not there pre-1994. Apartheid was saving such a smaller group of people. Safe to say that they were Bantustan, but they were not that organized. But if you look at the trajectory from 1994 to 2004, there's been a stability in government. Post that, there was stability in terms of economic development. There were areas of improvement there and there. expansion of services, you'll see the level of electricity, the level of water, the level of building of new schools in line with the new democratic dispensation, housing. As Joe Slovo spoke about million housing, if you remember very well. There's just an excitement that something is happening. And that on its own, to me, was a plus on developing the nation. But there was then in the process of this development, and I can say relaxation, take a step back, people then take it easy, that these things are going to be obvious moving forward. And there was a depreciation of service, including that of the security aspect of South Africa, where you realize that people are no longer taking charge of their own lives. People are now relegating their responsibility to government, but also government neglecting to build institutions, or what we call organs of people's power. So broadly, there's been just a number of challenges that came in just immediately after 1994. 10 years later, we had problem of depreciation of services. In the local government, equally, you'll find that there were elements of stability there and there. But now you'll see that there's an issue of challenges of water. Basic services are not delivered. Roads are depreciating. But that's what we call characterized as a sense of incumbency. Is that when you start to grow and stabilize, there are people who come in the system for their own nefarious interest. And society is not able to guard against that, protect itself against that. So that's the challenge we are facing today in terms of our standing society. You could speak about crime. It manifests in different phases. You know how crime, okay. Some are just petty crime, some are white-collar crime, some are even business, private sector crime, because the state has depreciated in terms of its capacity to protect its citizens. So I can blame the state there and there, but I'm of the community activism. If communities stand together, there will always be a way of resolving problems. I'll give an example. Government bring a project to a township in Mamelodi. Let's say Mascaral now, where we were going to have a big water project to resolve the timber issues. I can tell you tomorrow you'll see what we call mafias. I don't trust that they're mafias. They're small boys, charge takers, stopping those projects. So the timeline that government put to complete the work for the people, there are a small group of people who come there with guns, big guns, threaten the contractors, demand money, and then they stop the work. So the delay in terms of those implementation of projects get done by those smaller criminals who think that they are big in the community. But community don't report that. They know, community knows them. Actually, community even toy with them. Sometimes they block those projects because they are then becomes part of the bigger network of protecting criminals. But if we fight criminals, we can defeat many of the ills in society.
So if you know it and I know it, right, doesn't the Minister of Police know it then to go and protect those particular projects? Or what is he waiting for? A fax? You know what I mean? These are things that are known. You're saying you know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
We know about the construction mafia. We know it's going to happen. But yet, why then do the police not proactively know it?
There has been, I was listening to Shamila Batoy when I was driving here. She raised a very critical point to say there's been a hollowed out of state capacity, both to fight crime and corruption, but also to prosecute.
Who hollowed it out?
The chief askari called Jacob Zuma. And he's
under what banner? But everybody voted to protect him in Parliament.
Look. There's always been a context to that. There's what we call party line. Party line is when you contest election, you go to a parliament. Members of parliament are required to at least listen to their political parties, let alone the fact that they are independent in terms of the law.
So those people in parliament, are they subject more to their party line than they are to the constitution?
The party contest election. I think that's fair.
Yeah, but there's a constitution that they swear allegiance to.
Yes, you see, there's a thin line between the two. Look, if I'm deployed by my political party and give me a party line, I ought to follow the party line because
even if you know it's illegal.
That can be handled internal in the party. Yes, you have to do that.
So you have to do that. So
yes,
in other words, if you know that your president has committed a crime or a senior member has committed a crime or whatever it is, if you are deployed to parliament by your party, you've got to just sit there and say, nothing to see here.
We shouldn't put it in that simple manner. It's quite a complex matter. Remember, others are matters of investigation, matters of speculations.
But it's not that complex.
No. But remember, you can't remove someone by speculations. That's why there are law enforcement agencies. In terms of the ANC prescripts, is that if you are charged, you're charged, you step aside because the ANC doesn't have power to investigate individually, and that's the responsibility of the state. So if you are charged, you step aside. So we're avoiding a sniffer dog arrangement to justice. That I'll go and run after you, Mike, by someone who alleges that you did X, Y, Z. later on we found that no, Mike was just wrongly accused. I mean, when many people were killed by apartheid government for nothing, necklaced, and then it discovered later that no, they were not actually guilty. So let's respect the rule of law.
Yeah, but that's why we changed the law to stop that.
Yes, true.
Right, so there we changed it. We adopted a constitution. Yeah. Constitution we all know and love, everybody except for Jacob Zuma. And so there's this constitution. You go into parliament, you swear allegiance to the constitution, not to the party, to the constitution, to uphold the constitution.
Yes.
But you're saying that is subservient to the will of the party.
No, look, the dynamics there are quite complex, Mike. And I think let's put it the way it should be. In South Africa, we've got what we call the superiority of the constitution. Fair. And then underneath it, we have what we call administrative constitution of the political parties and the likes. They are allowed to determine their way of operation by the constitution. So the constitution doesn't take away the authority of the administrative constitution of the different political parties. So what political parties do is for discipline purposes, for management of their own internal arrangement, all members swear allegiance to the party, not that they don't respect the constitution of the country. So that dynamic always had to exist to manage democracy. Otherwise, you're going to have I call it mhodo, a loose type of an arrangement where there's no discipline, there's no cohesion, and that can be good for democracy. So democracy ought to be managed. The parties ought to manage their own members of parliament. The point we are trying to drive through is not really inconclusive the way you are putting it. In the instances where a wrong has been done, I think political parties also put mechanism to deal with their members. In Jacob Zuma's case, it was quite complex because even at the time when Kanja's matter was raised, there has not been any court judgment that necessitated that he must be removed by the party. At the point where things get worse, the party removed him. It might have taken longer for ourselves, general people, but it's not easy to run the party like that. Otherwise, you can liquidate yourself. And remember, he was the head of the party. So he was the first amongst the equal. So it's not as simple as we put it, our own as commentators in our own space. It has to do with the dynamics of management of the internal capacity of the party, and also not to liquidate the party, because you can liquidate yourself. And remember, he's not the future of the party. The party is too bigger than that.
Okay, well, let's talk about the present of the party. And the present of the party is that it's a party led by Cyril Ramaphosa, ostensibly brought in when the party saw this moral problem and actually recalled Jacob Zuma. And we're going to the Cyril Ramaphosa era, and what has happened, all the indicators are way worse. And on top of it, he takes money for something he never delivers. We know all the gory details about stuffing money in couches, etc. And once again, in Parliament, he gets protected, even though if I had to do that or you had to do that, right, I think even Becky Tele would find a case against us. It's not that difficult to prosecute.
But we don't need to which hand. We don't need to find a case. A case must be obvious. But look, let me deal with the issue of indicators being worse. I'll come to that aspect. Least I might forget. Is that economics. It's a function of investment and return, right? And President Ramaphosa come into office and find the state paralysis.
But he was the deputy for 5 years. He couldn't have found it. It wasn't like he came from outside. He was the second most powerful man in the land.
That's not how.
And then he was shocked to find all these things that were in the newspapers every day.
No, he could have not been shocked. He had been fighting internally. That's what
he said he was shocked.
No, he can't call a press conference to announce what he has been doing internally. The party is what we call the National Executive Committee, where matters are dealt with. And I think the issue of Zuma has been a discussion for over a period of time in the NEC. But let me tell you the issue of the collapse of institution and why you think things are worse off. In the 9 years of rule of Jacob Zuma and his Indian friends who had actually captured the state, he came in a very stable environment where President Mbeki had built solid institutions in government, including the DCOE, the Scorpion, as you know it. He comes in and focuses directly on what matters. The law enforcement agencies disband the Scorpion.
Yeah, right? But with the help of Parliament. No, I mean, you know what I mean? He may have had the idea.
Yeah.
It's just like I may have the idea coming as president to invade the neighboring country. Somebody has to agree with me. You know what I mean? It can't just be my idea.
No, I agree, Mike, but look at the issue here in the way they should be. He's the most powerful person in society. He has followers. We're not homogeneous, remember? And surely there will be those who really agree with him. Even today, they still are, which I think I must examine some of the minds of these people. So the ANC is too big for a party. It's big. It's a big organization. People come in differently. So I always say to my colleagues in the ANC, the membership system of the ANC is the biggest threat to the life of the organization because everyone else joined. So there are many people who joined the ANC and become very influential, whatever way they did it. Fair. That's a party issue. But Jacob Zuma find people who resonate with him in the party, who supported all the things he's been doing. And they will agree that it was quite wrong for the entire liberation movement to allow one man to run patriarchal system such that it undermines the strengths.
But we know from the Zondo Commission it wasn't one man. We know. I mean, it's in the reports. And many other people were implicated.
It was a lead figure. Remember, in the ANC, the ANC is a presidential organization. The president is the most powerful person. He opens and closes meetings. If he speaks, it's over.
Okay.
That's how it works.
But okay, so then let's move on, because obviously the Jacob Zuma thing we've done to death in South Africa. But in this current administration, we saw the then Minister of Defense breaking God knows how many rules and then being promoted to Speaker of Parliament under President Cyril Ramaphosa, not Jacob Zuma. She broke those laws under President Cyril Ramaphosa, many of them. She sort of had a career in crime that spanned both leadership. But the president, the supreme leader, the guy who's fixing stuff up, doesn't just not dismiss her, he promotes her, right, to Speaker of Parliament.
Yeah.
Where, am I missing something, you know?
Yeah, you might be missing the issue of management of dynamics, but also management of processes.
Okay.
And I don't think that I can speak on behalf of the president.
Okay, that's
on how that happened. But I can tell you that knowing the man the president is a man of process. To an extent that on the basis of the behavior of the former Minister of Defense and what had come out to play out in public now, on the hindsight, I think the president was acting to allow the law to take its course, but not actually allowing himself to be a person who takes decisions without facts.
Okay, so everything that we've discussed so far leads us to a point that here we are hurtling towards the general election. And the ANC support seems to be at the lowest that we've seen it in democratic South Africa, right? Because as much as you say it's fine, it's process, it's president, we've got to suspend the law because it's the president, people must not consider their morals or the other citizens that they've sworn allegiance to or the Constitution. We must stop all of that because of ANC's internal dynamics.
No, Mike. That's not our conclusion, me and you.
Okay, what's our conclusion?
The point I was trying to drive through is that in management of the party, there are certain decisions that we take slowly to the point that many of public commentators and general public will feel that the party is not acting timelessly. And in that instance, I said to you, there ought to be a role of law enforcement agencies because in the party, it had put literally a line of march within its members that if you commit crime, you get charged, you step aside. Subject yourself to Integrity Commission. Integrity Commission can subject you to a number of processes, including political school. If they still think you can be rehabilitated, you get rehabilitated, taken to political school elsewhere. So there are many processes that the party put into itself. But remember, Mike, it's a liberal democratic organization with constitution that allows, every Tom, Dick, and Harry to join. So the management of membership of the ANC is quite a problematic issue. So the party has a weakness, I think I'm acknowledging it, that is unable to manage its membership system because everyone else does join. So I'm not saying that we must subvert the constitution because it's the ANC. I'm not saying that things must not be done because you're an ANC member. Parliament must suspend its responsibilities. Members of Parliament must do their work as expected. They must do their work. But remember, in Parliament, there are parties. Even if you look how the DA people are together on everything. Look how the EFF people are together. It's not about the ANC.
Yeah, but
it's the nature of our democracy. It's a party-driven democracy. While we have a constitution, parties still manage their own affairs. Yeah, and that you can't take away.
But to be fair to both the EFF and the DA, both of them have not been afraid to fire members when there's been... as you say, sort of the hints, not even prosecutions, not even charges. They themselves have dismissed members, right? That's happened.
You might not necessarily have followed the ANC. Many members of the ANC have been stepped aside, including members of Parliament. Maybe we don't talk much about it. I think the ANC is shy to speak about its success sometimes, to an extent to its own detriment.
Yeah.
Because it's too much open of a party.
Yeah.
ANC is too much democratic. In the EFF, if you differ with the chief, you're gone. You differ with the chief, you're gone. You're not going to stay there. And he tells you that this is me here. So the ANC is a movement of the people. It's too big. It's too democratic. And I think I don't agree with it. If it was me, I'm not that I'm an autocrat. I would not allow such an open
one would
open
imagine there's
party.
an easy line. You just follow the law. And if there's a law, you follow your own processes, right? And if you've got somebody... Anyway, the point is, you and I, this is a debate which I think we can go on forever. But the real question now is, as we go towards the election, there seems to have... it looks to the whole world like a very, very lackluster campaign being run by the ANC. We don't see a lot of election posters. We don't see a lot of anything. Probably their biggest moves to date is to wheel out Thabo Mbeki to go and say, I hate the party, I hate what it stands for, but I'm here, so please vote for them.
No, just like Oliver Tambo, Thabo Mbeki can't say he hates the party. He's a maker of the party.
He didn't say he hates the party. He hates the people that are running the party. He thinks that the party does some very bad things. In fact, if you listen to his speech that he made in his walkabout in Soweto, it would have sounded quite comfortable coming out of the mouth of one of the opposition leaders, right?
No, well,
then he draws this conclusion of saying, but I'm a member, therefore, I'm here to support the ANC.
No, all of us agree that over a period of time, a lot of things had happened. And we characterize that as a sense of incumbency.
It's not the sins of incumbency.
No, I'll explain to you why. I mean, the fact that you have got this big organization running all 9 provinces, or except one, running the entire national government with almost majority of municipalities, there will always be elements that enter the party to drag it down. And that's the point I've been trying to drive through. President Mbeki speaks about self-corrections. He doesn't negate the fact that he's a member of the party, an elder in the party. Actually, a man who many of us pre-1994 have seen him as an architect of the party, just alongside Oliver Tambo, who may his soul rest in peace, who was celebrating his life this month. This is the month of Oliver Tambo. But there is an aspect that Mbeki want to try to emphasize South Africans, that there's no alternative to the ANC. And I want to emphasize this point because I try to drive it through, that the ANC is the only party that has what we call an inclusivity in management of ethnic groups in South Africa. The ANC is the only party that had managed to bridge the gap between the races in South Africa. It's called a non-racial organization. It's the only party that exercised democracy more than any other party. Look how we elect our members. Look how we elect our members of parliament, members of council. It's the ANC that take itself very serious in terms of democracy. So it had actually strengthened democracy in South Africa. But the ANC equally agree that there must be an aspect of economic transformation, which I think fundamentally we have not done so well, which leads to this, muzzling of the party by people who want to join it for scavenger reasons. And these are people who are found in society, who are allowed to be members of the ANC for whatever reason. So I'm saying the president speaks about that challenge of the dynamism of the management of the party. He said it's going to get rid of, it's going to help the ANC. It's not an easy thing. You can't do it by declaration. You do it by the program called renewal. And that renewal program, Mike, it's not going to be an easy on the path by declaration by Ramaphosa to speak and then it happens tomorrow. It has to be systematically managed, but also in the process, you don't break the party.
Yeah.
Because you can do that harshly but Jacob Zuma is a sign of exit of those who don't want in the party. In fact, he represents everything bad that happened in the ANC. Jacob Zuma is an embodiment of everything horrible we speak about me and you today, including the collapse of government institutions, including the moral decay in the organization. He was allowing everything to happen as people wishes. Remember, there was what we call the Premier's League. He had adopted a particular stand of management of the party, that he gives them a free role in their provinces as long as they protect him. And you'll see how that damages the party. And the brand of the party is damaged. That's what President speak about. Yeah. President Mbeki speak about. And the renewal process had kicked Jacob Zuma out, thanks to the Ramaphosa presidency.
Do you think that Thabo Mbeki has got grounds to speak, seeing as though he oversaw the cover-up of the arms deal? And he killed 300,000 South Africans with his AIDS denialism. Do you think that gives him any moral high ground to talk about the state of the party?
President Mbeki is one of the most ethical leaders of the ANC. Consistency in his view. This notion that he had killed 300 people, I don't know where it comes from. And it's sponsored by the media, but also by the pharmaceutical companies of the West. The debate about what needs to be done in terms of curing HIV, has that been an open debate? It's not his debate. And he entered the fray like any other person. But that not mean that the government had stopped, rolling out medication. And you can see even at that time, when Mbeki was president, we were the biggest fund on HIV/AIDS throughout the sub-Saharan Africa. So if you go to check the facts, you'll find that even President Mbeki's era, President Mbeki has been the most supportive president in terms of his government funding on HIV/AIDS. let alone the fact that he had contest with regard to antiretroviral drugs, because pharmaceutical companies were pushing him to say, let's go in now. And he said, no, I can't just feed my people garbage. There's no food here. That's why I introduced social security issues, including the grants and all those things. He said, no, my people can't eat drugs when there's no food. I must spend more money on making them to eat before they eat the drugs. And they were insisting that he must actually just buy drugs randomly. That was not correct. And if you look at the trend, from the point where he left presidency, his government was the highest spender on HIV/AIDS. Do you agree with me on that? It's a fact.
Yeah.
It was.
We can't dispute that because the numbers don't lie.
Yes.
But the point is that a treatment had been found, and he stood in the way of the treatment. That's where the 300,000 number comes from, right? That is scientific fact. I've lived through the era when he was prohibiting the distribution of antiretrovirals.
I think prohibition is very, well, subjectively, as you can say that, but I don't think he was prohibiting. He was demanding more answers, the scientist. And he had the team of scientists behind him. So I don't think we really have to accuse a man for trying to exercise his brain in protection of his society or his nation. It might have been that the timing was not correct. Okay. But it's safe to say that beyond that, he did move swiftly, more than any other head of state in the world, to actually feed his nations of the drugs. So I don't think that we should actually accuse him as a genuinely someone who was irresponsible. I think the timing, yes, it might have been bad, and we agree in principle. But he had another discussion that we're supposed to have taken further, the feeding of his nation. People eating drugs without food. And then remember, people were even getting bigger stomach, some heads. People were eating those drugs without having food. And he said, no, let's feed them first before we give them this drug. They're too strong. So you had a point there. But the timing of how he comes into the issue, well, we can debate that. Fully agree.
Okay,
so
and
then the arms deal, do you want us to discuss that?
The arms deal is a simple case of absolute theft, right? Simple case of absolute theft.
But look, he had went to dismiss his deputy president. Unthinkable thing ever happened in the party.
Yes.
The president dismissed his deputy president. Is that not acting? You see, the problem is that where we're seated here, me and you, Mike, we might think that certain things are easy to deal with. But we're not exposed to the difficulties of management of processes in the party and the state. It's fair because probably we've never led at that level. But the fact that a man dismisses deputy president, to me, is a plus. On the issue, Tony Ngeni equally went in. And you see all those crooks that we spoke about, himself, Juma, there are people who are still causing problems. Where are the further to cause problem in the state today?
The president allowed his deployed members of parliament and ministers to carry Tony Ngeni in shoulder high to prison, right? Surely that would be reason enough for any political party leader to dismiss people, is when you are cheering a man going to jail who has stolen money from the state, right? Surely that shows a bit of a... Anyway, once again, let's set this aside because I want to pick up on something that you said today, and you said it when we were on JJ's.
The internal workings are quite complex of management of the
clearly
party.
They are, but there are big organizations that don't have to answer to those internal workings. You can decide they're bigger than and more important than the country or not. That's the choice that's been made.
I agree with you fully.
So let's talk about something that you've picked. That I want to pick up on something that I heard you say on JJ show, and you even alluded to it earlier. And that is that one of the reasons that people should support the ANC is because you've got the experience, right? That nobody else has got. If we had to carry that through, no government would ever change in any country. Isn't that true?
Yes.
But yet governments change all the time, and in many cases for the better, right? Surely you can't believe that the reason to vote for the ANC is because the other parties don't know what the ANC knows, when we know what the ANC does.
No, that's fair. Look, it goes beyond that. Not even sentimental, by the way. If you are to look at the record, if you ask me a question whether the lives have changed South Africa pre-1994 to today, I'll say yes, lives have changed. And I can give you statistics about that. One, if you look at the delivery of electricity, which is a subject of debate, is that almost 88% of South Africans today do have access to electricity. At the point where the ANC center government was just less than 40%, right? If you look at the provision of water infrastructure in South Africa, it's now 89%. Look at the report, it will say that. But yes, there's an issue of reticulation that we're dealing with now, which is a challenge on the basis of aging infrastructure. an asbestos pipe that's still, underneath Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni and Tshwane. That's another point that we need to deal with, that the ANC must go and fix that aspect, because they already now delivered quite massively on the areas of quality of lives of our people. Look at the aspect of schooling in South Africa. I will tell you, and I give this example because of myself, that where I used to grow up, I used to travel 10 kilometers across the river to school. It's not a joke, barefooted. Yeah. Now today in my area, there are more than 4 secondary schools in the radius of 50 kilometers, and plus 2-3 primary schools, both junior and senior primary schools. That is a delivery for people who have never seen it before. The fact that there are lights all over the street, the fact that at least now we are able to access water in our tap, to me, that is an issue that the ANC must speak about. ANC now speaks about making South Africa to work, to deal with the issue of unemployment. They are the people who understand the context at which this problem we've had now, it came up since 1994. If you know that when the ANC entered government, there were only less than 8 million people at work. Today, there are more than 17 million people at work in South Africa.
Yeah, but the population has doubled.
Has doubled, yes. Right. So I'm saying the ANC must come and resolve that issue of employment. It's quite an important issue, by the way. And we have lagged down on that aspect. And I think that the ANC need to do more better there.
Yeah, but going back to, because you never quite answered the first question, and that is, you were saying the strongest reason to vote for the ANC is because they have the experience. Using that logic, nobody should ever retire. No country should ever change its government.
Oh, yes.
A football team should keep the same players.
But look at anything else opposite the ANC. Yes. Just took a guess.
Right.
Just look
But we can't look at the Western Cape. You made that point the other night.
No, we can't even do that, because even the disparities there are quite massive. The Western Cape is not governed the way South Africa should be governed. It's not inclusive. It's actually for minority. And minorities who have occupied that luxury space for a very period of time. DA does well on servicing their people. I think that's fair, their constituency. The ANC must also do well to service their constituency. I saw how Soweto was there over the weekend. Clean, nice, of township. But go to Khayelitsha, you won't see the same. I'm saying, I don't like to speak in comparatively speaking. I really like to speak about matters of substance. Substance matter is that the ANC is an inclusive party, inclusive government. Its intention is to ensure that we build a nation. The DA is a sectoral party that literally favors its minority. That's one. If you go to EFF, it's a sectoral party that speaks about some policies that are quite impossible in a democratic South Africa. You know what they speak about. The MK party is exploding with it's Dalai Lama. What I would call the biggest askar the ANC have ever had in his life, worse than David Chikalange and the rest of them. So Zuma is a worse askari that ANC has ever harbored in its rank for 60 years, unsuspectingly that's not a member of the ANC. It's an imposter. It basically is an askari who jump in the bandwagon of popular movement and remain there. So MK party can't give solution to any problem of this country. You could see what they're doing now. They're eating each other just before they even enter government. The founder now has been charged because he bought a car. So the old man is jealous of someone who drives cars equal to his. It must only be his family. So you can't have a family property that runs the state. I mean, we're going back to the Gupta's era. So we can't do that. Look, there's nothing that is opposite to the ANC. Honestly, people must go and work for a better opposition if you want to remove the ANC. But there's nothing standing in the way of the ANC now. Because all the parties that we have are quite a sectoral, personal, run by a family and all those things. But Olumisa just dies natural death with this party. Will never come back. So I'm saying, when you're sitting here, Mike, be honest with me. Do you see anything that can contest the ANC? The answer is no. And you raise the issue that the support seems to be going down. And the posters are not as many as they used to be. Look at the massive crowd that the president put. He was in Free State yesterday. You see how many people were there. He was in KZN. You see how many people follows him. The ANC machinery is not that of social media. The ANCs live within the people, with the people. ANC is in the ground. There's a branches all over. Each branch of the ANC has 100 members in each and every ward in South Africa. That's a big machinery. You can't undermine it, Mike. So I'm saying this notion of the polls that are coming in, I saw Ipsos also put on that poll, they're not scientific. And don't equate local government election and national government election. That's a different space altogether.
So you're confident. You're confident because I know you are. You said it to me. We had a nice discussion afterwards.
Yeah.
That you're confident that the ANC will get an outright majority, and the number you've been saying is 55%, right? And I know that the president has been mentioned 57%. Everybody got straight onto the bandwagon. So the ANC, you're convinced, will get a majority.
Definitely. I'm not even doubting it. I've seen the campaigns. I've seen the branches. I've seen what people are doing in the ground. You might not have seen many posters because the party is strained in terms of finances, which is fair. But overall, the party machinery is on the ground. And the contact with the people is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. everybody else, all PEC, all RECs, all branches, that machinery is too big to fail. Not by these Mickey Mouse parties that we are seeing. Honestly, I can give you a narrative. I don't see another campaigning at the ANC. Maybe you've seen something. Even the Rice Mzansi that people have put so much money, the Open Anga family have put so much money, they are not campaigning. Their message is not clear. Everything's about anti-ANC, but it's not resonating with the people. You must go to the people and say, this is what I'm carrying. And that alternative party that must come in must be so strong and solid in terms of what it seeks to do. It must not be anti-ANC party. It must be about South Africa.
So the way that people are going to go to the polls, yes, right? You're saying, for starters, the opinion polls that have been released, they are not scientific enough. They're going to get it wrong. The ANC will get more. You are telling me and telling the people that are watching this that there are so many people out there that are going to be so happy with their lives under the ANC because the last 5 years have been great. The unemployment, that we'll set that aside. The electricity, we'll set that aside. The water, we'll set the potholes. We'll put all of that aside and vote for the ANC because the machinery is too big.
You know, the basis that people believe that the ANC can do better. That's what the President Beko was saying, actually. Even the President himself have said that we could have done much more better. But many challenges, including global challenges and local challenges, including internal party politics, have actually strained us. But if you see how the party is responding to itself internally, on how it manages its affairs, I can tell you that the ANC will be better off party post this election. And if the ANC does rise, as I'm saying, in this election, no one will ever stop it. Because the ANC is building government capacity now. I can see that happening. I'm still not happy as a member about the local government, which is quite complex. But if you look at the national sphere of government, look at the SARS, it's back. Look at the NPA, it's building capacity. Look at for instance, PRASA is bringing all the trains back now.
Yeah, but they watched. I mean, let's pick up on some of the really important issues. We watched live on television the dismantling of the rail system. Your Secretary General, who was the minister at the time, I had his spokesman here, was watching it live on television and doing nothing about it.
No, he didn't intervene. Actually, this success of PRASA now is Secretary General Mbalula's intervention. Look, I always say the timing is important. Remember, at the time where we had the COVID, capacity to maintain PRASA was hollowed out completely.
But now that is in the President Ramaphosa era, because so far you've blamed everything on President Zuma.
No, it's because COVID was not his making. So I'm saying COVID actually brought another...
But what was stopping him from doing his job? The rest of us had to do what we had to do.
I don't have the internal working of our PRASA work, but the fact that they brought almost 80% of that train back, to me, is a plus sign that this government had work.
So you're okay with losing 20% for no reason?
I'm not at all. I'm not.
Because if you're saying, they're bringing 80% back, one must say, in that time, the government continues to get taxes, right? And as we've seen, the government has not failed to get taxes,
yes,
right? But so in other words, it wasn't a resource issue. The country paid, because you've got to remember, everything that a government does is with the money that's generated by the public. It's not generated by government, it's generated by the public, right? So in other words, PRASA had the money to do what they had to do, but yet we've lost 1/5 of our capacity, right? Even though we paid more money on top of the money that had been paid until then. But nobody has been held accountable.
I'm not sure. I'll just have to check my facts. But I think there was intervention in terms of some activities of Mtimkulu and the Chibambo rail saga, you know it, the billions of rands that were...
But those go back to the Zuma era. Yeah, I'm talking about the collapse of the infrastructure in the last 3 years, right? The fact that our ports can't operate. The fact that you can't drive to any city you can't go from Johannesburg to Durban without having to go past miles and miles of trucks because there's no freight rail. These are all services that the citizens that are watching this have paid for with their tax money, right? Everybody, from the richest to the poorest.
No, I fully agree, Mike. Like I said to you, and I wanted to emphasize this point, everything that happens in the state or anywhere else is a function of investment and returns. I don't think that happened immediately when Ramaphosa comes in. I think there was an era of mismanagement of the state entities.
But now we must reward that mismanagement by voting those same people back in.
No, but I'm saying that there's a clear systems now that have been put in place to reclaim back all government entities. And you can see the results are there.
So the ANC's message is, trust us, we won't do it again.
Exactly.
We did it under Ramaphosa, before we did it under Zuma, but we're not going to do it in the future.
No. The truth is that under Ramaphosa's presidency, there's been a work to reclaim and rebuild state entities.
But by your own sayings, we've now got 80% of our rail network from 3 years ago. Right? This is completely in the middle of the Ramaphosa era to now.
You know why we did that? You just go and get statistics from PRASA. They released a report. Now, they are now going to be building 800 trains in South Africa. Know what it means?
So we broke the old ones so we could build new ones.
We don't broke them. Remember the Mchimukulu story was that they want to import a trains from outside. We said, no, we need to build them here. And the fact that now...
Well, that's after we paid China and we didn't get our trains. But
it's a dynamics that we need to deal with. I agree with you. There have been a lot of failures of management. I agree. And and the president went to State Capture Commission to explain that.
Okay.
That there has been a problem in terms of how government was managed in the past 9 years or so. And that's how the ANC intervened and removed its president.
Okay,
it's not a small issue, by the way, to remove the president. It's not a small issue.
Yes.
And if you don't value that as part of intervention, to me, then we're expecting the ANC to be something else that you can only find in heaven.
Although the voters might make this a small issue. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Let's just do a mental exercise, you and I, because I know you thoroughly and a good man, this Navari, but
thank you,
you're completely convinced the ANC is going to get a majority.
I'm convinced.
Right?
I'm not even doubting that aspect.
Let's just do a little bit of scenario planning here. Let's just say between you and I, okay?
Yeah.
Nobody else listening to this, but if the ANC had to go below 50%, right? We're into the era of coalitions.
Yes.
Now, we've seen a couple of high-profile coalitions that have worked, right? Many municipalities are running coalitions and running quite successfully. Auditor General's happy. Reports are coming out well. But there are some horror shows.
Yeah.
Johannesburg being one of them. The ANC has aligned with the EFF and they've put forward a puppet mayor, right? Now, and what has happened subsequently? Buildings are burning, roads are exploding, we don't have water. I mean, gee whiz, you just drive around the road over here outside, and this is in the leafy northern suburbs of Johannesburg. It's a disaster. I know you weren't happy with me pointing out that the president was very proud of the opening of a tap or the tarring of a sand road pothole. But do you see the ANC getting into bed with the EFF on a national level if it needs that level of support?
What I did advise many of my comrades in the ANC, I'm not in that level of leadership, fair.
Yes.
Is that majority must rule.
Yes.
And the ANC should not enter into coalition with anyone.
Right.
But it must do what we call core governance.
Right.
So the bargaining process should be in line with what is our national interest. So that we don't get hold ransom by small parties.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, I'm giving an example of this, and I know many people said, no, he's vouching for the DA alliance with the ANC. I'm not necessarily saying if the Freedom Front Plus win majority of seats in the city of Tshwane, to an example, and the ANC feel like it's necessary for them to run Johannesburg, and Freedom Front Plus can give them that majority in Johannesburg, and we give them support from plus here.
Okay.
That's what must happen.
Right. So there's no formal agreement.
No formal agreement. Now, it must not be a one-size-fits-all. It must be on the basis of balance of forces, material condition, and national interest.
But if you recall, we had that in Johannesburg. Herman Mashaba, when he was mayor, was in an agreement whereby the EFF gave them the votes.
Yeah.
The majority ruled.
Yeah.
Herman Mashaba became mayor, started to set about certain things, and then the checkbooks came out, right?
Oh, yes.
And the next thing, allegiance was switched just as easily, right? And then we were straight back,
into zero.
To three mayors who mysteriously died, right, in a matter of a year. It was a wonderful sort of rural politics come to the city.
That I can't venture into it. Natural causes sometimes. And I can't discuss how they demise.
Natural causes and car accidents, that happens a lot in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
But,
wow, I wasn't aware.
Oh, yeah, no, go and have a look at Zimbabwean opposition leaders and car accidents. It was eventually quite a thing. But anyway, the thing about it is, do you see the ANC going into a formal coalition if they fall below 50%?
Look, the ANC is very experienced on management of coalitions, by the way, in the national level. Remember we went to coalition with the National Party. And just immediately after 1994, yes, there was a coalition.
It was a government of national unity. It was
yes,
even
in the Western Cape, we
Yeah.
had some coalitions with the
Yes.
National Party, to an extent that the National Party get liquidated, and
Yes.
some conservatives decided to join the DA, which is pushing so much of the National Party policies to date. And then others joined the ANC. I don't think that it will be difficult for the ANC to find suitable progressive partnership to work and run government if it doesn't get 51%. I think that the ANC should find a way of balancing act, informed by dialectics, of course.
Yeah, but now it's going to make what you said earlier quite interesting, because it's complex running a big party. It's complex running a country.
Yeah.
It's going to be worse when you have to do it ethically
Yes.
and answer to coalition partners.
Yes.
Do you think the ANC is ready for accountability? Because up until now, let's be fair,
Yeah.
there's been no way to enforce accountability on the ANC. There has been no mechanism. When you're sitting with a real majority, with
Yeah.
a safe majority, which they have been until even after the last general election, a safe majority, 57%.
But-
people can be sick. People don't
But
pitch
Mike,
up at Parliament. That's fine. You're
Do you
going
know
to get a
that the
majority.
ANC is the most open and transparent party ever in South Africa?
I didn't know that,
No,
because
please
I've lived
look
here,
at
but
it.
only for the
it's
the whole of
because-
my life.
It's because many of us were preoccupied with negativity about the ANC. I want to tell you something. The ANC in systems, its internal systems are quite transparent. That's why it's too big. And it's too big because the ANC allows space for people to feel their own ideas. You don't find that in any other political party in South Africa. It's a highly democratic organization. And you can't be democratic and not be accountable. That's too contrary. Those are dialectical opposite issues. The issue that you are dealing with is the issue of focusing on delivering service to the people. And the manifesto raised that matter, that the ANC must focus on the people. And what needs to be done is that we must build a capacity in the state. We must have a capable and quality leadership to run government. And if the ANC under President Ramaphosa actually do what they are saying they're going to do, I can tell you that there's no other party that can match the ANC in terms of accountability and transparency in South Africa, including how its president ought to be interviewed now by the Integrity Commission before he become a candidate. It doesn't get done anywhere. So I'm saying let's look into go read the ANC and understand it in context. You'll have a different view. And look at other political parties that they claim to be decent and clean and democratic. They are not equal to the ANC. And I'm not saying this because I'm partisan to the ANC, but I've seen it internally myself. Look, sometimes our wish don't get through. We have candidates who wish they could be leading the party. They get defeated because it's democratic processes. And that doesn't make the ANC so horrible. It makes it better, but we must actually have the best among us leading the party. That's where we need to get it. We need to have the best among, and the President Mbeki speaks about cleansing the ANC of rotten elements. But on transparency and accountability, the ANC as a party itself, Mike, you'll be shocked if you go to read it closely, other than reading it from the media and the papers, and probably TikTok.
Mr. Navari, thank you so much for joining us on the State of the Nation. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. South Africa is going to be like Switzerland under the control of the new ANC that's going to get a clear majority in this forthcoming election. If you were convinced by what Mr. Navari had to say, then ANC could, in fact, this new ANC that's going to sweep all those bad apples aside, run the country properly for all of our benefit, this will be fantastic. So thank you so much for coming in. It was lovely to be with you.
Quite interesting.
It's interesting. It was wonderful to be with you on JJ's show. To everybody that joined us, support Pace Car Rental. They sponsored this episode. Like and subscribe. The State of the Nation. We'll see you the next time. Thank you very much from the State of the Nation.